Quick demo of this video tutorial. This is a step-by-step tutorial on how to implement CRUD operations in Angular 5 using Firebase. This is the final output of this tutorial. Using this form, you can add new employee records. Now let me save this employee record. We can see that newly added employee can be seen here, Angelica Ramos. And in order to update a record, you can click on this pencil icon here. Then you can make the change here. I'm going to change this senior developer to junior developer. Then click on submit here. So here we have updated Angelica Ramos position. So here we can see the notification message submitted successfully. In order to delete an employee record, you can click on this trash icon here. Then it will ask for confirmation. Are you sure to delete this record or not? Click on OK to delete this record. So here we have deleted the employee record. Here you can see the corresponding notification message deleted successfully. So I hope you will find this tutorial helpful for your upcoming Angular 5 application. So please watch till the end of this video tutorial. What's up YouTube? Welcome to .NET Mob. In this tutorial, I will show you how to implement CRUD operations in Angular 5 using Firebase. Before starting this video tutorial, I would like to ask you a favor. If you found this video helpful, please thumbs up this video. If you are new here, please be subscribed to this channel .NET Mob. We have already uploaded a video on implementing CRUD operations in Angular 4 using Firebase and Angular 5.2 module. In that video, we have used Angular 4 and old version of Angular 5.2 module. In this tutorial, we will use latest Angular 5 and updated version of Angular 5.2 module. Without further ado, let's get started. This is my Visual Studio Code editor. I will be using this IDE for demonstration purpose. Now I'm going to create an Angular 5 project inside this project folder. So let me copy this file directory path from here. Then back to Visual Studio Code editor. Click on file, then open folder. Then I will paste my path here. Hit enter. Click on select folder here. Inside this project folder, we need to create an Angular 5 application. For that, you can use Angular CLI command in your command prompt, or you can use the integrated terminal from this IDE. So I will use integrated terminal. For that, you can go to view, then integrated terminal here. In order to create an Angular 5 application, you can use this command ng new, then application name. I will name this application as Angular 5 Firebase CRUD. Hit enter. It will take some time to complete this process. It will create a new Angular 5 application and it will install required npm packages into this application. So please be patient. So here we have done with creating an Angular 5 application. Inside this Explorer, you can see the newly created folder with project name Angular 5 Firebase CRUD. Inside that, we have an src folder. We will be adding new files and codes inside this src folder. Now let's run this application. For that, first of all, we have to navigate into our folder, project folder, Angular 5 Firebase CRUD. Then we can use this Angular CLI command ng, then serve -- open. Hit enter. It will open our application in localhost 4200. So this is how the default Angular 5 application looks like. We will be back to this Angular 5 application once we create our Firebase project. For that, you can go to this website console.firebase.google.com. Here I am already logged in with my Gmail account. Now let's create a new Firebase project. For that, you can click on this add project button. Then name your application. Here I will name it as Angular 5 CRUD. Click on create project. Currently we are inside the newly created project dashboard. Now back to VS Code editor. Now we have to install two packages into our Angular 5 application. In order to interact with this Firebase project, we need two packages. One is Firebase and another one is Angular 5.2 module. Angular Fire 2 is an official package for interacting with Firebase project from Angular applications. In order to install these packages, I'm going to open one more terminal. For that, you can click on this plus button here. First of all, we have to navigate into our project folder. As you can see here, my folder path is too long. In order to hide this path, we can do this prompt, then $, hit enter. In order to install these two packages, we can use this npm command, npm install Firebase, and we have provided a version here. Then Angular Fire 2, here is the version, then --save. Hit enter. So here we have done with installation of these packages. Now let's check how we can use this package. For that, expand this app folder here. Inside that you can see a file app module.ts. Inside that we have to add two import statements for these two packages, Angular Fire module, then Angular Fire database module. Now we have to mention connection details of this Firebase project. For that, you can click on this add Firebase to your web app. Then we have to copy this configuration from here. We can add this configuration inside our environments folder here. Environments, inside that you can see this file environment.ts. Now let's add a new property here, Firebase config, and I will paste the configuration here. In order to initialize this Angular Fire module, we need this configuration. So first of all, we have to import this environments.ts file inside this app module.ts file. For that, we can do this import from then environments, then we need this file environment. From that file we need to import environment constant. First of all, we will initialize this Angular Fire module inside this imports array. Dot initialize. Inside this we will pass this configuration that we have just created. So we can do this environment.firebase config. After this, we have to add this Angular Fire database module inside this imports array. Now back to Firebase project. Here we have a database. Inside this database, we will store the records. We have to change the permission inside this rules tab here. Now we have to change this read and write permission. I will set it as true for these read and write operations. Then click on publish. Now we have done with Firebase configuration. Back to VS Code editor. I have given this npm command to install Firebase and Angular Fire 2 in video description. You can copy from there. Now let's create required components, model and service classes. In order to create a component, you can use this command ng, then generate component, then component name. I want to create a component employees. In short, you can use C for component and G for generate. Hit enter. So here you can see the new folder created for this component employees. Rest of the components will be created as a child component for this employees component. So right click on this employees folder, then click on open in terminal. You have to create two more components, ng, G for generate, C for component. First child component will be employee without S. Hit enter. Then we need one more component with name employee hyphen list. Now we have to create one file for model class and one file for service class. For that, I'm going to create a new folder inside this employees folder. Click on new folder. I will name this folder as shared. So here we need to navigate into this shared folder. Then in order to create a service class, you can do this ng, then G for generate and S for service. Service class name will be employee service. So we just need to type employee here. Hit enter. There is no specific Angular CLI command to create a model class. Even though you can do this ng, G for generate, then we need to create a class with name employee. This command will create a file with name employee.ts. Inside that we will have a class employee. but the recommended way to name a model class is modelName.model.ts. For that, you can add this extra parameter type is equal to model. Hit enter. So here we have created a file for employee model, employee.model.ts. Inside that we have employee class. Inside this Angular 5 sample project, we are going to deal with employee details like full name of an employee, position of employee, office location, and salary of an employee. So we have to add properties corresponding to these employee details. So here it is. First of all, we have name, then position, office, salary. Salary is of the type number and remaining properties are of the type string. When we insert a new record inside Firebase DB, it will automatically create a string key in order to identify each record inside the DB. And hence we need the same key in order to identify each records in our Angular 5 application. Now inside this employee service class, which is inside this file employee.service.ts, we have to add one function for each Firebase CRUD operation: insert, update, and delete. First of all, we have to import this employee model class inside this service file. So we can do this: import from employee model class file, which is employee.model, and we need to import this class employee. In order to implement Firebase CRUD operations, we have to add an import statement for required packages. So here it is. We have to import these classes from Angular Fire 2 database. Here we have imported Angular Fire database and Angular Fire list class. Now I am going to define two variables inside this class. First of all, we have employee list. It's of the type Angular Fire list. Then we have selected employee of the type employee model class. Inside this employee list variable, we will store a collection of employees that we have inserted into Firebase, and we will store currently active employee details inside this selected employee variable. In order to interact with Firebase DB, we have to inject this Angular Fire database inside this employee service class. So we can do this: private Firebase. It's of the type Angular Fire database. Now I'm going to define the first function in order to retrieve all the employee records that we have inserted into Firebase DB. So here it is: get data. Okay, this dot employee list. We have defined the variable here. Employee list is equal to this dot this injected variable Firebase dot list. Inside this function, we have to pass our node name. It will be employees. We will save employee details under this employees node. So in order to retrieve employees record from Firebase, we can do this dot Firebase dot list, and then we have to provide the node name, which is employees. Finally, we can return this dot employee list. Next, we will define a function to implement CRUD operation insert. So here it is: insert employee. For this function, we have a parameter employee. It's of the type employee model class, which is employee. Inside this employee parameter, we will have details of new employee. So in order to insert this employee record into our Firebase DB, we can do this dot employee list, which we have initialized here inside this get data function. Now in order to insert a new record, you can do this: just call this function push. Inside that, we have to pass the corresponding employee object. We have to save the record like this. There will be a property name to store the employee name. Then we have position for employee position. Then we have office and salary. So here we have done with insert operation. Now let's implement the next CRUD operation, which is update. Update employee. For this function, we have one parameter employee. It's of the type employee model class, which is employee itself. In order to update a record, you can do this dot employee list dot update. For this function, we have two parameters. As a first parameter, we have to pass the corresponding item key. So we can do this employee dot $key. As a second parameter, we have to pass the corresponding object to be updated. So let me copy this object as it is and pasting here. So this is more than enough for an update operation. Now let's discuss how we can do the delete operation. For that, I will define a function delete employee. For this function, we have a single parameter key. It's of the type string. In order to delete an item from Firebase DB, we can do this dot employee list dot remove. Inside this function, we have to pass the key of an item, so $key. Now let's look how we can call these functions from respective events. Before that, we have to design our application from root component itself. As you know, root component of an Angular application is app-component.ts file, and here is the corresponding HTML app-component.html. Currently our application looks like this, and this default code inside this app-component.html is responsible for displaying this user interface here. I'm going to design this application using Bootstrap and found our some icon. First of all, we have to go to main HTML, which is index.html. Inside this, I'm going to add CDN path reference for Bootstrap and found our some icon. So here we have added style sheet for Bootstrap and found our some icon from max CDN. Inside this body tag, you can see app-root tag, which is responsible for displaying this app component HTML inside this index.html. Now let me get rid of this default HTML inside this app component HTML file. Here we need a div with class container. So this is an emmet abbreviation for creating a div element with class container. So this is a shorthand method for creating HTML elements using emmet abbreviation. You might have used emmet extension with another IDEs, but in case of Visual Studio Code Editor, by default emmet extension is already installed inside this IDE. If I hit tab, it will create a div with class container. Now inside this div, I want to show employees component HTML, so we have to copy corresponding employees component selector app-employees. Let me copy and pasting here, then hit tab. So this tag will be replaced with the HTML inside this employee component.html. Let me get rid of this default HTML. Instead of that, we need a div with class text sender. Now inside this div, I want to show the application header using h2 header. So h2 with a class jumbotron. This class is from Bootstrap. Then hit tab. Inside that, we have the application header employee register. Beneath this header, I want to show child components employee and employee-list. For that, we need a div with class row. For the first div, we need 7 out of 12 columns. So we need class call md7. Like this, we need one more div for employee list component. For that, we need call md5 class. Inside this div, we want to show this component employee. So let me copy corresponding component selector app-employee. Copying and pasting here. Now in order to create the tag, just hit tab. Like this, we need employee list component inside this second div. So let me copy each selector app-employee-list. Copying and pasting here, hit tab. Now in order to work this application, we have to add these components inside this app component.ts file here. First of all, we have to add the required import statements for these three components. So here we have added three import statements for employees component, employee component, employee list component. Now we have to add these components inside this declarations array here. First of all, we have employees component, then employee component, then employee list component. Now let me save all of these modifications here. Now back to the application. So here we have the application header, employee register. Below that we have employee component div and employee list component div. Now inside this employee div, we will show a form to insert or update an employee record. And inside this employee list div, we will list all of the employees that we have inserted into Firebase DB. First of all, I will show you how to create an employee form using template-driven approach. For that, we have to use this property, selected employee from employee service class. In order to access this employee service class inside this employee component TS file, we have to inject employee service class inside this component. Before that, let me show you the application structure. Inside this application, here we have the main component, employees. For that component, we have two child components, employee and employee list component. We are going to inject this employee service class inside this parent component employees, and thereby we can use that injected employee service instance from these child components employee and employee list component. So whenever we change inside this injected employee service property, same changes can be accessed from other child component also. So that is what we are going to do inside this application. We will inject this employee service class inside this parent component employees, and we will use that injected employee service instance inside these components employee and employee list. So first of all, I am going to inject this employee service class inside this parent component employees component. So first of all, we have to inject this employee service class here, import from shared folder. We have to inject from this file employee.service.ts. We have to inject employee service class. In order to inject this class inside this employees component, first of all, we have to add this class inside this providers array here, employee service, and we have to create a private parameter inside this constructor employee service. It's of the type employee service class. So here we have injected employee service class inside this employees component, which is the parent component for employee and employee list. Now let's look how we can use the same instance inside this child component. First of all, we have employee component. Here is the corresponding TypeScript file. First of all, we have to import the employee service class. Import from, we have to get out of this employee folder, so we have to add two dots here, then shared folder. Inside that we have employee.service.ts file, and we have to import employee service class. Now we have to create a private parameter inside this component constructor, private employee service. It's of the type employee service class. So here we have done with injection inside this child component. We don't need to add this employee service class inside this component providers array. So we have to add the same inside the other component employee list component. So let me copy this, and we have to create one private parameter inside this employee list component. So here we have injected employee service class inside the constructors. Now back to employee component, we have to create a form for employee insert and update operation. So here is the corresponding HTML, employee component.html. Let me get rid of this default HTML. Instead of that, we need a form tag, and we don't need this action attribute here. Instead of that, let me add a local reference with hashtag hash employee form is equal to ng form. We need a div with class form group, form hyphen group. hit tab. Inside that we need a label with text name. Along with that we need an input element with class form control, form-control. Hit tab. By default input elements will be of the type text, so we don't need this attribute here. And we have to set the name property for this input control. Name is equal to name for employee name, and then we have to set a local reference name is equal to ngModel. Then we have to add a two-way data binding for this control using this employee service property selected employee. Okay, for that we can do this. ngModel is equal to, we have injected employee service inside this employee component with this name employee service. So let me copy this and pasting here. Inside this employee service we have name property to store employee full name, so we can do this employee service dot name. Finally, I want to set the placeholder. Placeholder is equal to full name of an employee. Like this, we need 3 more label text box pair for position, office and salary. So let me copy this and pasting below this 3 times. And we have to change this HTML name, then local reference and this two-way data binding accordingly. So first of all we have position, then control name will be position. Then we have to change the local reference as position, and we want to change this two-way data binding to this property position, and we want to change this placeholder also. So I want to do the same for remaining controls. So here we have added required label text box pair. In order to work this template driven form, we have to import forms module inside this app module.ts file. So first of all we have to add the import statement here. So here is the corresponding statement, import forms module from Angular Forms. Now we have to add this forms module inside this imports array here. Let me save all of these modifications and back to the application here. So here we have added label text box pair inside this employee form. Now we have to add one submit button and reset button. Apart from that, I want to add a dollar symbol inside this salary text box. In order to add a dollar symbol inside this salary text box, first of all we have to create a div with class input -group. This is from Bootstrap. Now we have to move this salary text box inside this input group div, and before this text box we need to add a div with class input group add-on. Inside that we can add a font awesome icon for dollar symbol. So here is the corresponding classes, for then $. Hit tab. Let me save this and back to the application here. So here we have added dollar symbol inside this salary text box. Now we want to add 2 buttons for submit and reset. For that I will add an extra div here, div with class form group. Inside that we need 2 buttons, button with class btn, then btn-default. And this button is of the type submit, so type is equal to submit. Then button text will be submit itself. Like this, we need 1 button for reset also. So let me copy this and paste in below that. And this button type will be button, and we have to change this button text as reset. So here we have added 2 buttons for submit and reset. Inside these buttons I would like to add font awesome icon, so we can do this. Inside this button we need to add I tag with class far, then far-floppy-o, hit tab. So this will display a save icon, and inside this reset button I want to add an I tag with classes far, then far-repeat, hit tab. Now let's define submit event for this form. For that we can do this ngSubmit is equal to onSubmit function. We will call this function whenever we submit this form, and inside this function we will pass this form reference, local reference employee form. Now we have to create this function onSubmit inside the component. So here we need to define the function onSubmit, and we have a parameter for this function, employee form. It's of the type ngForm. So here we need to add an import statement for this ngForm class. Import from Angular forms. We have to import this ngForm class, ngForm. Inside this onSubmit event we will implement insert and update operation. Before that I will implement reset operation for this form using this reset button. So we need to add a click event here for this reset button. Click is equal to, we will call this function reset form. Inside that we need to pass this form local reference employee form, copying and pasting here. Now we need to define this reset form function inside this component here. Reset form function. For this function we have a parameter like this onSubmit event. Let me copy this and pasting here, and we will reset this property with new object here. Key is equal to null, then name is equal to empty string. Okay, we have to initialize string properties with empty string. So let me copy this and paste in below that. This is for position, and this is for office, and finally we have salary. Salary is equal to 0. Before this reset operation we have to call the default reset function for this employee form variable. So we can do this employee form dot reset. Okay, now we need to call this same reset function inside this ngOnIt lifecycle hook. This ngOnIt lifecycle hook will be called whenever this component is ready. So we can do this dot reset form. So whenever we call this reset form function from ngOnIt lifecycle hook, we don't have a value for this ngForm parameter employee form. So I'm going to make this parameter nullable. We just need to add a question mark here, so that this employee form is an optional parameter to call this reset form function. We don't want to call this reset function when this employee form parameter is null. So I'm going to add an extra if clause here. If employee form is not null, we need to call this reset function. Let me save all of these modifications here and back to the application. Let me add some test data here. Now click on reset. So reset form function is working. So next we are going to deal with form validation. I'm going to make this employee full name as mandatory. For that we can add required attribute for this input text box for employee name. So just add required attribute here, required. Apart from that we have to add some CSS rules in order to show the validation error. So let me open this file styles.css here, and then let's add required CSS rules here. So whenever we have an input element with class ngInvalid and ngDirty, we will show red border around that control. So with this CSS rule, we will show pointer cursor whenever we hover on button and anchor tag with btn class. So here we have updated styles.css. In order to see these changes, we have to rerun this application. First of all, we will stop this application. For that, you can use this shortcut Ctrl+C. Then it will ask whether you want to terminate this bad job or not. Press Y for yes. Then you can use the command ng serve :open, hit enter. So it will run our application again. Now let me enter something inside this text box and then just clear this text box. Here you can see the red border around this text box indicating validation error. Now inspect this control. Okay, initially it is having two classes, ngInvalid and ngPristine. Okay, ngInvalid will be there when this control is not valid. Currently it is invalid because there is no text in it. ngPristine indicates that there is no change from its initial value. So whenever we start typing inside this text box, here you can see that its classes are changed. ngInvalid class is replaced with ngValid class. That means there is a text inside this text box. And ngPristine is replaced with ngDirty. That means there is a change from its initial value. If I clear this text box, both these classes ngDirty and ngInvalid will be there for this text box. So we will apply this red border around this text box. Now as part of this employee form validation, I want to make this submit button as disabled whenever this form as a whole is not valid. In that case, we can do this. Here is the submit button. We will add the disabled attribute, disabled whenever this employee form is not valid. So let me copy its local reference employee form dot valid. So whenever this employee form is not valid, we will apply this disabled attribute for this button. Let me save all of these modifications and back to the application here. Initially you can see that this submit button is already disabled because there is no text inside this employee form. So whenever we type something inside this employee name text box, this text box is valid and thereby this employee form as a whole is valid and thereby this submit button is enabled. Next we are going to implement the first CRUD operation insert inside this form submit event which we have already created on submit function here. From this function we can call this employee service function which we have already created, insert employee. So let's look how we can do that. First of all, we can do this dot employee service dot insert employee. Into this function we have to pass a parameter that contains details of new employee like name, position, office and salary. Whenever we submit this form, values from these text boxes will be inside this parameter employee form of the type ngForm. In order to retrieve that, we can do this employee form dot value. Okay, so this will insert new record into Firebase DB. After all, we have to call the reset function. For that we can do this dot reset form, and for this function we have to pass this ngForm variable employee form. Before this insert operation we have to call this getData function in order to initialize this employee list of the type Angular file list. So I'm going to call this getData function inside this ngAudit lifecycle hook, employee service dot getData. Let me save all of these modifications and back to the application here. I'm going to insert the first employee, Ashton Cox. Position will be software engineer. Office location will be California. Then salary. So here we have inserted employee details of Ashton Cox. Let me check our Firebase DB. Inside the Firebase DB, you can see the newly inserted record for Ashton Cox. Here you can see the corresponding record key, and here we have inserted this record under this employees node. So here we have completed Firebase insert operation from our Angular 5 application. Now I want to show notification messages after CRUD operations insert, update and delete, like saved successfully, submitted successfully or deleted successfully. For that I'm going to use an external plugin, ngx-toastr. So let me install that ngx-toastr plugin inside this Angular 5 application. For that let me open one more terminal, then navigate to the project folder. In order to install this package, you can use this command npm install then ngx-toastr then --save. I have given this command in video description. We can copy paste from there. So here we have installed ngx-toastr inside this application. Now let's check how we can use this package. First of all, we have to add corresponding module import statement here. Import toastr module from ngx-toastr. Then we can do this toastr module dot for root, and for this toastr module there we have a style sheet. Now I'm going to add that style sheet as a global for this application. For that you can open this angular cli.json file. Inside that you can see this styles array. I'm going to add the style sheet reference here. Inside node modules we have installed ngx-toastr. Inside that we have a style sheet toastr.css. Now we have to inject toastr service inside the required components. So let me add the corresponding toastr module import statement here. Import toastr service from ngx-toastr. Now we have to add a private parameter inside this constructor. Private, then toastr, it's of the type toastr service. Now in order to show a notification message using this toastr service, we can do this.toastr.success. As a first parameter we can pass the notification, and here we have the notification title employee register. Since we have made a change inside this angular cli.json file, we have to rerun this application again. So let me stop this application. For that you can use this command Ctrl+C, then press Y for yes. In order to run this application again, you can use this command ngserve --open, hit enter. In order to check whether this toastr notification is working or not, I'm going to add one more employee here, Bruno Nash. Position will be software developer. Then office location will be in Texas. Then salary. Click on submit. So here you can see the success message, employee register submitted successfully. Now let me check our Firebase DB. So here you can see the new record for Bruno Nash. Next we will discuss how we can list employees that we have inserted into this Firebase DB inside the second div for employee list component. For that, go to this TypeScript file employee list component.ts. Inside that we have to create an array of employee model class. So I'm going to add an import statement for employee class from shared folder. Inside that we have employee.model.ts file. From that file we have to import employee class. Now we can declare an array employee list of the type employee. Now inside this employee list variable we have to populate employee records from this Firebase DB. For that we will use this ngOnIt lifecycle hook. So first of all, I'm going to move this initialization function get data from employee component to employee list component. Let me cut this and pasting inside this ngOnIt lifecycle hook of this employee list component. Var x is equal to this dot employee list dot get data function. This get data function will return a collection of employees as Angular file list. So we have to convert that Angular file list into employee array. For that we can do this x dot snapshot changes. Then we can subscribe to this subscribe inside this subscribe function, we can write an arrow function like this. So this snapshot changes function will convert Angular file list into observable of Angular file action, and we will subscribe to that observable here. And here we have the arrow function. Inside that we can convert that Angular file list into an array of employees. So whenever we subscribe to an observable of data collection, this subscribe function, that means this arrow function, will be executed whenever there is a change inside this data collection. Okay, so in this case, whenever we do operations like insert, update or delete inside this Firebase DB, this arrow function will be invoked. This item parameter contains a collection of employees. So in order to convert this into an array, we have to iterate through each items inside this item variable. So we can do this item dot for each. Inside that we will define another arrow function with parameter element. Let me declare a local variable y is equal to element dot payload to JSON. So this function called element.payload to JSON will return a JSON object containing these details: name, office, position and salary. Now we have to get this key. For that we can do this. We will add a new property into this object with key is equal to element.key. Now we can push this object y into this employee array employee list. For that we can do this dot employee list dot push. We have to push this y object y as employee. Here we have casted this y as employee class. Now using this employee list array, we can list employees inside this second div here. For that we have to open corresponding HTML employee list component.html. Let me get rid of this default HTML. Instead of that we need h6 with class text sender. Inside that we will show employee register. Let me add a line break here. Below that we want to show an HTML table with classes from Bootstrap table, then table hyphen sm, then table hover, hit tab. Inside that we need rows, so add tr elements. Inside this tr element we are going to iterate through this employee array here. Okay, this one employee list. For that we can do this star ng4 is equal to let employee of employee list. So this tr element will be repeated as much as records we have inside this employee list array. Inside this tr element we need to add td elements. Inside that we want to show employee name, employee dot name. Like this we need to show employee position, so employee dot position. Let me save all of these modifications here and back to the application. So here we have listed employees that we have inserted into this Firebase DB. Now I am going to add one more column for edit and delete operation. For that I will add one more td element here. Inside that we will add an anchor tag with btn class from Bootstrap. We don't need this href attribute. Inside this anchor tag I want to display a font awesome icon for pencil. So i.far hyphen pencil hyphen square dot o. Like this we need one more button for delete operation. So let me copy this and paste in below that. Instead of this pencil icon we need a trash icon. So we can replace this class with far hyphen trash hyphen o. Let me save this and back to the application here. So here we have added two buttons for update and delete operation. Whenever user click on this pencil icon here, we have to populate the corresponding employee details inside this form here. then user can change the details. After that, if user click on the submit button, it will update the record. So let's look how we can do that. For that, I'm going to add click event for this button here. Click is equal to on edit function will be called. For this function, we will pass this employee object. Now we have to define this on edit function inside this component. On edit, for this function we have a single parameter emp. It's of the type employee class. We have designed this employee form based on this employee service property selected employee here. Now inside this onEdit function, we have to populate the selected employee row inside this form. For that, we can set this selected employee property with the corresponding employee details. This dot employee service dot selected employee is equal to emp. Let me save all of these modifications and back to the application here. Now I'm going to open this Bruno Nash record for update operation. For that, you can click on this pencil button here. Then it will populate the corresponding employee details inside this form here. Then after making required changes, user can click on this submit button to update this record. But we have a small problem here. If I edit this employee name here, same changes can be seen inside this employee list also. We don't have to happen that, because it might cause some performance issue if we have a lot of employees. So in order to avoid that, instead of this direct assign operation, we have to make a copy of this object then assign to this selected employee property. For that, we can do this object.assign. For this function, we have two parameters. First function is an empty object, then emp. So it will make a copy of this emp object and we will assign that copy inside this selected employee property. When user click on this submit button, we have to update this employee details. We have already implemented insert operation using this submit button. Now let's check how we can do the update operation in parallel to insert operation. So first of all, we need the corresponding employee key, that is $key property inside this form. Okay, inside this employee component.html, here we have added label text box pair for all employee details. Along with that, we have to add a hidden field for key. For that, I have done this input of the type hidden, name is $key, then we have set the local reference. Then here we have the two-way data binding, and G model is equal to employee service dot selected employee dot key. Now inside this form submit event, we have already implemented insert operation here. Now we have to do update operation. If this hidden field value is null, that means $key is null, we can say that it is an update operation. So I'm going to add an extra if clause here. If employee form dot value dot $key, if it is equal to null, we will do the insert operation. In the else part, we will do the update operation. For update operation, we have defined a separate function here, update employee. We can call this function with the same employee object. So I will do this. So let me copy this and pasting here inside this else part. Instead of this insert employee function, we have update employee function. Now let me save all of these modifications here. I'm going to update this record for Bruno Nash. So click on this pencil button here. Now I'm going to append number 1 to this software developer. Then click on submit. So here we have updated record for Bruno Nash. We can see the same changes inside this Firebase DB also. Here we have appended software developer to software developer 11. Now let's discuss how we can do the last CRUD operation using this delete button here. So let me add a click event for this delete button. Here we have the button for delete operation. Click is equal to, we will call a function on delete. For delete operation, we just need the employee key, so we can do this employee.$key. Now we have to define this onDelete function inside the component. OnDelete, we have a parameter key. It's of the type string. Inside the function, we can call the delete function which we have written inside this employee service class, delete employee. For that, we can do this dot employee service dot delete employee, and we have to pass the employee key. We have to show one toaster notification after this delete operation also. For that, I'm going to inject toaster service inside this list component also. So let me copy the corresponding codes from this employee component.ts file. Here we have the import statement. Let me copy it and pasting inside this component here. Now we have to inject this toaster service. For that, let me copy this private toaster of the type toaster service. Let me paste inside this constructor. Now in order to show a notification, we can do this dot toaster dot warning. Here we have the notification message deleted successfully, and then here we have the notification title employee register. Now before this delete operation, we have to get the confirmation from user side. So I will add an extra if clause here for confirmation. If confirm, are you sure to delete this record or not? If user confirm the operation, we will do this delete operation. Okay, let me save all of these modifications here and back to the application. Now I am going to delete this record for Bruno Nash. Click on this delete icon. Then it will ask for confirmation. Are you sure to delete this record or not? Click on OK to delete this record. So here we have deleted. Here we have the notification deleted successfully. So in this tutorial, we have discussed how to implement Firebase CRUD operation in Angular 5. You can get this project source code from the link given below in video description. If you found this video helpful, please thumbs up this video, and for more awesome videos like this, please be subscribed to this channel .NET Mob. Please share this video with your friends and colleagues. Have a nice day. Bye.